This podcast discusses sensitive topics related to child exploitation and online safety. Such content may be disturbing for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. The following podcast will be discussing the signs of online grooming and how to keep your children safe online. If you suspect a child is being exploited, please contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. That's 1-800-843-5678.
Welcome back to the MNJ's World podcast. This is the digital divide where we explore the gap between your selfie smile and your morning mug. Is your online persona a perfect reflection of your real life, or is it a carefully crafted mask hiding the real you? Join us as we unpack the power, the pitfalls, and the ever-evolving playground of the digital you. And now your hosts, Matteo and Jen Verg.
Welcome back, everybody, to the M&J's World Podcast.
Episode 4.
Episode 4, Digital versus Real Identity.
What does that mean?
Man, this is going to be a fun one.
It is.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just being sarcastic right now, but there's a lot to unpack in this episode. We've got a lot of information we want to go over. It sounds like a lot, and basically the title of this podcast, The Impact of Social Media Exposure. I think that question has become so prominent, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of exposure with social media.
Mm-hmm. We're exposed to it every day, all
And our
the
children.
time. Yep. Our kids even
I
more.
think more so it's the children we should be worried about more than the parents.
Right. It's weird because our children were born into it, whereas we were grown, like we were groomed.
We had to adapt to it.
We had to adapt to it. We were groomed into it because it did not exist.
Right. We were
For
here
us.
before
Before
the
it
social
existed.
media,
Right.
before MySpace, before
Yeah.
all of that.
Right. None of that was a thing. It couldn't exist. Smartphones didn't exist.
Can you imagine our parents now? Because we're talking about this, but
Right.
just imagine
Yeah.
parents and
I
grandparents
mean,
and
a form of social media has really kind of always existed, though, because when you look at like newspaper, that was basically the elderly's
yeah.
social media. You know what I mean? Because you would go to the newspaper for
But
information.
There's a person that's putting that newspaper together.
Right. Usually a team in many cases, because it's a news outlet or it's
And
a
social media now, though,
journal company.
everybody posts on social media.
Everyone's a journalist now,
Right.
even us.
That's kind of what we've been doing.
Right.
This podcast, it's based on doing research and, so we are journalists.
Everyone's a journalist now, including you, listener. You're a journalist. I'm sorry, that's just too funny. But no, seriously though, there's some. We had to put a disclaimer on this episode because there's some sensitive stuff that we're gonna touch base on today. Some things that are okay. So one of my main things that, as you know, sweetheart, I try to avoid politics on publications in general.
I mean, dude, I tried to avoid politics.
Personally, me and you have conversations about politics all the time, off camera. We do have our personal communication and discussions about things that are going on in the legal world, in the politics world, in the law world. We kind of keep our ears open to that stuff.
I mean, I've recently, I guess more now than ever, have been looking at the news, but I never used to. I didn't care.
Right.
I would get the news from you.
Yeah.
Because I know you keep up with it every now and then.
Why? What was your purpose for avoiding the news? Why did you avoid the news? Why do you avoid the news?
Because the news always gives you something bad.
Isn't that what it seems like?
It's always something negative.
Right. And
I don't need that in my life.
And for most of us, we're so busy in the morning that we don't watch the like ABC Good Morning America, all that, or NBC, whichever network it is. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't watch anything, right?
Those are actually positive influence. They're great in the mornings. So this just news reporters just talking about fun daily things. But yeah, other than that, the news is usually full of a lot of just negative stuff. Yeah, like war and famine
that's
death
always been
and
something. Even when I was younger, I was like, if it's something important, I'll either learn from my parents, or I would hear about it.
That's interesting. Right.
So I've never
I was
cared.
raised in a house where my dad watched a lot of news.
Your
so I
parents
was
still
just
do.
like, yeah, I was enveloped in it. Yeah, they still are. This apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
And I'm sorry, older people get into the conspiracy theories too. Older.
Oh, now social
Older.
media has made this worse, and we're going to talk about that in this episode. We're going to get into some of the conspiracy theories. We're not going to touch too much base on QAnon, but I do want to do a little brief summary about that.
And then we're also going to talk about TikTok and how I also feel like it should be banned.
You don't like TikTok. You think it should be
don't.
removed. You're not the only one.
No.
You know.
And we'll get into that.
And we're not trying to say we're like liberals or we're conservatives, we're donkey or elephant. We're not going to go this far.
I'm not a donkey.
No, listen, if you go in our bathroom, in our public bathroom,
You
our
do
shared
have a donkey and an elephant.
I have a donkey and an elephant, 2 pictures of it.
And they're sitting in
I'll actually
tubs.
put it on, I'll plug it in on the video podcast.
And they're sitting in tubs.
They're sitting in tubs, yeah. I guess it's like dry political satire. Dry
now,
satire
though-
about politics.
But now that we have to talk about that, we have to talk about the one that's above the door.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
We do have Jesus.
Picture of Jesus that says I saw that.
Yes. So we have a donkey and an elephant and then a picture
There's
of
some
Jesus.
pretty intense dry humor in our shared bathroom just to entertain visitors. I digress. All right, so where should we start? Oh, let's
We
start
do
with
have
our
some
list.
notes. We do have some notes.
It's like I forgot what we're doing today. Do you want me to go first?
No.
Oh, why not? So the impact of social media on mental health. It's a huge topic. And the thing is, the research is still ongoing about this stuff. But there's a lot of concerns that excessive social media use can contribute to anxiety, can contribute to depression, body image issues in young people. And that's a big deal for us parents. You know, parents are interested in understanding these risks and understanding how to mitigate them. You know what I mean?
I know you said body issues.
Body image issues, quote unquote.
I've had that when I was younger.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm 37. I'm going to be 37. So just imagine how I felt young at a 13-year-old.
That's a valid point, because even if we were to go
Opposed to
prior
now.
to social media,
Right.
a mirror would still cause body image concern. I think social media has made it worse.
Even television,
Yeah.
like the models.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
I mean,
Trying to
models has
live to a
been-
certain standard that you
so
see.
body images, it's
Yeah.
always been
Yeah.
a big thing, even when I was younger.
Yeah, that's a
And
very
it just
valid
seems
point.
like it's gotten worse.
I think so, because of the exposure now of
But then I think that in a part's been getting a little better because now there's plus size women that are models now.
yeah.
So
That's true.
part's gotten
Right.
better.
And we're seeing a little bit more e-commerce for plus-sized women,
Right, yeah.
and some stores that are taking that
Right.
also in respect. It's good to see that. I think some of the styles are sometimes like, as you know. But nonetheless, cyberbullying and online safety, that's another big concern. Social media platforms, unfortunately, can be breeding grounds for cyberbullying. And some of that translates from school back into home or vice versa, some of this, sometimes you look at certain kids, right? And you're like, what has your parents taught you?
Oh, I know.
You know what I mean?
And it's sad because with me working when I used to work at a school district, I've seen not the cyberbullying, but just bullying altogether.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, when they do cyberbullying, they're trying to hide themselves
They're
because there's
oppressing certain, they're suppressing certain feelings, they're suppressing certain things that are going on personally.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
And
Yeah.
I think people who do cyberbully are going through a lot of things.
Right.
But even ones in school.
And I'm not trying to discredit anybody who's a bully. First off, knock it off. It's not good. But because everybody's got feelings, and I think cyberbullying is there's something there, right, at home. There's something. In every case, you and I, as far as with our children and as far as what friends and family watching their kids grow, we know that we have seen patternistic things that come from the parents that are now embedded into the children. It's just genetic. It's observed. It's seen. It all starts at home.
It all starts with the parents.
Yeah.
And truthful.
Another big concern: privacy and oversharing. Right? When we talk about social media, the exposure of social media, it's easy to share too much information. And what really has what opened?
Hold on, though. Before
yeah, go
you
ahead.
do that,
Go ahead. Yeah.
because you were talking about the impacts of social media up on top. I should have talked about the good side of it.
Oh, go ahead.
So the good side that I came up with was connections. You know, social media keeps you in touch with your friends and family, which is honestly something I use Facebook for.
Yeah.
I don't
predominantly for close friends and family. People you know. Yeah.
Because with us being here in Wisconsin, I'm not from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I'm not from here. My family is from Michigan.
Yeah.
So all of my family is in Michigan, and that's the way I feel closest
communicate
to them.
with them, have a connection.
I mean,
yeah, so
our
this is for
children
long distance.
have
It's
Facebook for that reason.
Right.
Is to communicate with the ones.
Yeah.
Even the ones that are in St. Louis, your side.
Mm-hmm. Yep. For long distance communication, social media has a great benefit for that. 100%.
Right.
Yeah. I have to agree with 100%. Sorry, took you away from your information. Go ahead.
Social media platforms provides a safe for people to express themselves creatively. Creatively.
Yeah. Yep. That's I was, I was going to mention that, social media is, in my opinion, can be a great art form for writers, for artists that love to draw.
Well, I thought that's what Instagram would have been for. Would be for photos, photography.
Yeah. Yep. Observing the world from somebody else's lens.
Right.
Really cool. A great way to share self-expression. That's really, 100%. Yeah. Yep. Businesses using social media to connect with customers.
That's another good outlook. Another good thing for social media. Yeah.
Where that stands out for me the most is mom and pop businesses, small ran businesses. I feel like Facebook helped open up a market for an ever-growing population to be able to communicate and say, hey, I mow lawns, or hey, I make clothes, tailor clothes, or dresses, stitching up dresses for weddings, whatever.
Actually,
kind
that's
of
that's actually how I found the lady that altered
your dress.
Was from Facebook.
Exactly, and she does it right out of her home. And so there's so much of that positivity, that you had researched those type of benefits when it comes to social media, exposure to social media.
I'm trying to think of another thing. So marketplace for selling things, for one.
Right.
Craigslist used to be, though.
Yeah, and the marketplace is getting just as tainted as Craigslist. I mean, to me, it's becoming another mixed pot of good and bad.
Yeah.
There's just something about online marketplaces when it comes to consumers.
And it seems like there's a lot of scammers
selling and buying. Yeah, tons of scams,
which is a bad thing.
Right,
about
all the
social
time.
media and the impact it can have.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because it does disadvantage people like my parents who love to sell stuff through the marketplace all the time. Yeah, it's like, I think you guys are just gonna have to open up a little thrift shop of your own.
Right, maybe make like them a website.
Right,
they post all
their own
stuff.
e-commerce. Or I recommend it to my mom, but the thing is, it's hard to recommend to the senior this kind of stuff. But I was like, Mom, maybe you should do eBay, sell stuff through eBay or Amazon, maybe Etsy. I don't know, but then there's the learning curve with some of that. So
especially with her being older.
Yeah, it then kind of gets to be a little bit challenging.
See, again, I know social media involves all the time to the fact where your parents now, our parents, they don't know.
It can be hard to keep up.
The stuff that's coming.
Yeah, it can be hard to keep up.
But your dad's the one that taught you about computers. So, he got you into, all of that.
Oh, yeah. Playing with computers since I was age 4 or 5.
Yeah, we were way before social media.
Yeah. No, yeah. Social media did not exist. Actually, to be honest, the mouse didn't even exist. We didn't have a mouse.
Oh, like the
there
buttons
was no
up
mouse.
and down on a keyboard?
No, there was no desktop interface. Everything was all what we called, the technical world calls
did you have
command.
a ball? Little robot?
No, you're not understanding. There's nothing to click. It was all text. You can't click on something that's just typing. Back then, computers were command prompt. There was no mouse. So you're even not familiar with this stuff.
No, I'm not.
No,
and I'm 30.
social
I'm going to
media
be 37.
did not exist for the regular consumer at this point. The reason why the internet was created for those who are uneducated.
Didn't you say the military?
Was designed by the military for communication, secret ops communication for military ops. That's the reason why the internet was existed. But they realized it had much more benefit, and here we are today. So it's the long story for another
multiple
day.
Years a day.
Yeah.
Multiple futures.
So much involved. Yeah. I worked for the government in IT. So yeah, you get to learn a whole lot over the years. This can be overwhelming. Nonetheless, let's keep going back on track here. I guess I'll just jump into the next one here. Privacy and oversharing. So, like I was saying, it's easy to share too much information. One of the things that really concerned me about this is the quizzes. Like, I know you love taking like quizzes online.
I do.
I'm not trying to say like to stop them or anything, because again,
I mean, I don't like post them and I don't show them. I just do it to do.
And you only use Facebook for personal connection.
Right.
For outside connection, it's totally different. But and because of that, it's not as bad. But the crazy thing with these quizzes is the fact that you're providing so much personal information, and we tend to forget that at our jobs we're asked to answer like 3 to 5 questions and answers about our personal lives, like what street you grew up on.
But isn't that like a security feature?
Right? Yeah, it is. But the thing is,
or like a secret question
to a hacker, I would call that profile building. With all of that information aggregated into one place, I can build an entire profile. I can get your dog's name, what school you went to, where you grew up, literally all from stealing your private information. Yeah, that's how bad it is. And so when we live in a society like that, where we now have all of our information on the internet as much as we do, sometimes we need to step back and say, hey.
That's why they say be careful what you post on the internet, because it's always there. It never goes away.
Right. Well, to an extent. And yes, and Congress has been fighting that as of recent with Mark Zuckerberg and all the other social media platforms trying to get to the bottom of that.
I know, we were watching that a moment ago.
And Congress is so lost because all these old people that are not technologically inclined are now given a lot of technological information and they don't know what to do with it. There's some like videos that are hilarious. You watch like the politician asking, well, what if you unplug the wire that's plugged into Facebook? Does it shut the whole internet down? Like, there's some, I'm not saying they actually did ask that, but some of the questions get that vague. Like,
goodness.
And so it's interesting to watch this. And I'm like, dang, man, they need some helpers in that place to get these guys on up to par with it. But again, then I'm not shaming these congressmen, because they do ask some very direct and valid questions that need to be answered.
I heard some of them when I was getting ready.
Right. And that's why we had to label this with a disclaimer at the start of this podcast, is we are going to get into some sensitive stuff about people losing their lives over something as petty as social media. Come on, bro. I've always said it, and you've heard me always say this, one is too many. That's going to be like my slogan.
Would that be our next article that we get into?
What?
Do you think we covered...
I think, well, let's see here. Is there anything else here? Well, I'll just zoom through these fairly quick. So the other thing, let's change pace here. What I want to do is I want to show a comparison of your digital identity compared to your real identity. Okay, because it's an important thing. And I was kind of showing this to you and explaining it to just kind of give us a little synopsis of this stuff. But you have two identities as a person. You have your real identity, but then you also have your nowadays you have your digital identity. And for many young generations, they're born into a household where they have some type of access to a digital device, whether like it's at school or at home,
a computer, a tablet,
or even a parent's phone. Laptop, right. How many times do we see a parent hand them
just hand them a phone?
So with a game on there or whatever.
Keep them occupied.
Yeah, like just stay quiet.
We've done that, which I'm guilty.
Office.
I'm guilty of that.
We're in the welfare office. I don't need you screaming and making
or running around,
throwing
get
a scene.
yourself busy.
And I'm getting old now, where the kids that throw a scene, love them. They give me entertainment when I'm sitting there waiting in a hospital or anywhere else. You know what I mean? Like,
because their parents don't want them on electronics or on a phone, so they're like, you know what?
Yeah, but then the parents look so embarrassed though, because they're like, oh my god, they don't know what to do. They feel like they're all like
being judged.
Right, and I'm like sitting there and I'm watching the kid run around screaming with a smile on. I feel like, and I'm like, yeah, you go, buddy.
I've done that too.
It's like it bothers the parents, but for me, it's entertainment. I'm bored sitting here. Otherwise, I'm just staring at all these people, and they're all staring. We're just staring at each other, and it just gets really awkward. So I'd rather watch a little baby run around screaming. It gives me something.
Or you got the ones who are sitting in the waiting room and they're on their phone. So
just zoned out anyway. Yeah. So like you don't even matter. You're in the corner anyway, so you're fine. You're okay. Just keep doing your scrolling. But anyway, your digital identity, it's a collection of your personal data, just like we said. Sometimes it can be too much. Maybe it's not enough. Maybe that's why you're not getting that job. Who knows?
Don't get me started on that.
It can be fluid and it changes, right? Your digital identity can be morphed. It can be changed. And our physical, our real identity, we can't really do much besides shaving or,
dyeing
changing our hair,
and,
stuff like that. Some physical changes.
Or something for like color.
Right.
And,
but it's still, but at the end of the day,
you.
it's still you. You can't change you as a real person. Your online identity, I know you're trying to think of like thieves and other illegal but
no, I'm thinking of like Botox and people that get like nose jobs
See, and that's like trying to change who you
your
are,
real
which is
identity.
fine. I'm not judging. If you are someone who needs that kind of health adaptation, so be it. And there's valid reasons for it. People that have certain health conditions. Digital identity, though, it can be anonymous, right? It can be unknown. Like someone can go around as an anonymous person, and we don't know who that Joe Smith is.
Well,
based on
that I can put as catfish.
Catfishing, yes.
Because that could be anonymous.
Yes. Let's jump into and for those of you who are unaware of the term catfishing, I'll just show that really quick here. Catfishing is the act of creating a fake online identity to deceive someone into a false relationship or for financial gain. And there can be more than just that. It's not just false relationship or financial gain. There's many other reasons why catfishers do this. But the fact of the matter is a catfisher is someone who is obscuring their identity in some way, shape, or form. So that's what we mean when we say can be anonymous or obscuring emotions. That's another big one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you're happy, but you're posting a sad post, I don't know that. See what I mean? If you're sitting around, it doesn't. Yeah. Like if you have some sort of borderline personality disorder.
I had somebody.
There could be anything going on.
Their post was kind of depressing. Mm-hmm. And I got a hold of them and I mentioned that, and they're like, "No, nothing's wrong with me."
Exactly. They're perfectly fine. They're like, "No, what's wrong with you?"
Right. I was like, "Well, your post was a little."
It
sad.
came off alarming, right? So you reach out for some affirmation.
Right.
Oh, they deleted it after you came out. So maybe they just see, and sometimes that's why communication is great, because now they get a perception of a persona of like, oh,
I didn't mean for that
for it to mean
people,
it to sound
right.
that way.
Yep.
Yeah, yes, that's such a good. I'm glad you brought that up. And now we're also presented with a whole world of artificial intelligence and deepfake. Those have been two hot topics in machine learning. 3 hot topics that we keep hearing all the time.
We could also show about the identity, like digital identities with AI and your face and the way it altered us and you. Yeah. And I mean, it's
cool.
You.
I mean, it's cool stuff.
It is cool.
It's cool tools.
But it's weird.
It's weird. It's taken a lot of people. A lot of people are set off by it.
Oh, I know.
Like,
you had a picture. You did a picture of me.
I posted so it on much
Facebook.
Fun.
And my mom was like, "That's not my daughter."
I know. But then on the funny side of it,
Mom, but I used my photo, and it just
on the funny side of it, and I can maybe show some examples in the podcast on the video YouTube. In case you guys are listening, you want to see the YouTube video podcast, be sure to tune in on YouTube for the video podcast, MNJ's World. But yeah, like you can like I need to show some examples of like the Smurf or like you can do like crazy inputs and turn yourself into some hilarious pictures.
So but that's also funny.
Yeah,
it's
an art form.
That's good.
Yeah,
about a digital identity.
Yeah. It's an art form.
They've also mentioned that AI is now apparently not doing children. Again, because of how social media makes children feel about themselves.
So artificial intelligence, yes. When I first started experimenting with artificial intelligence here in our house and I presented it to our children, they didn't say anything. They were kind of set back by it. They didn't understand it. The algorithms to them made zero sense, which is perfectly fine. I wanted to see how my children
will react to something
Right. But what I did do was I did refrain until recent, but it was only for theatrical reasons. We were working on a film.
You didn't put our kids in.
I never put our film through an AI filter. I feel that it's not, because the system is biased and it does pull out children. Right. I have come across some inappropriate and triggering content that's generated through AI. Listen, I even was offered, you had found a position for me working for the federal government. I don't want to get into too much detail, but it was
AI part,
working in their division of AI, trying to learn and observe it and study a little bit more because they want to ensure that AI does not become a national security threat.
Right.
And so there's a lot into this stuff. You guys can research this stuff on your own. It's nothing private. It's public information, but we do have to, that's why this is sensitive information for those of you listening. But it is amazing when used properly, though. Aside from all the bias, it's pretty cool.
It's funny.
Yeah,
like, I like it.
It's an art form, you know.
I mean, to be honest, I know they're so worried about doing using AI in a wrong type of way, but I mean, you've used it, and
For
you've
deepfakes,
used
malicious,
it with Trump, where he's sitting at a table.
The whole table's full of spaghetti.
Or he has like a bowl of spaghetti on his head that was dumped on his head. I mean, but it's, again, for funny.
It's just for comics. And one of the things I said, though, because recently the Biden administration just passed I think it was an executive order he signed, that there needs to be precautions and safety measures put in place when it comes to artificial intelligence, signatures, ways to identify AI. As an artist, I use Photoshop a lot, and when I create any content that uses AI, it automatically puts into the metadata of the image that AI was used. That licensing, that patching, I don't have control of that. There's ways to circumvent it, just like anything in life. But those signatures are put there for a reason. It's there to protect others that see the content, and they can't tell whether or not the image is real or fake. So Biden recently said we need to take more responsibility into ensuring that people are using AI for safe reasons. He's like, because he was laughing about it during this commencement of him signing the executive order. Right before he signed it, he laughed because he said, he's like, I just saw a video of me saying something. He's like, when the hell did I say that? And then everybody was laughing there because the video was a deep fake. I myself, you've seen me acting as Joe Biden or as Donald Trump.
An important message from President Joe Biden.
Joe Biden's gonna win the game.
I got you covered all the way through.
Mr. President, get down!
It's crazy, isn't it? Like,
it is, because they're
it's not even
it sounds
them.
so real,
but it sounds like them.
But it's not them.
And it's not them. It's amazing. The technology is so cool.
Oh, well, come on, guys. I thought I was the sleepy one here. What's going on?
Classic Joe.
But it can be abused, and that's why we really need to be careful. And we want this episode to be awareness to the public, and you need to be informed about these things. Otherwise, in hindsight, you don't know what you're looking for.
So the real identity would be you yourself coming out of your mother's womb.
Right.
You
the
are
real
who you
blood
are.
you, the physic you. And you do have things attached to you, right? Like your social security number on paper. And that can also be faked. We were talking about that.
Oh, I know.
Like a fake passport or stealing a social security number,
or a
black
fake
market.
ID.
Yeah, fake IDs through black markets. Unfortunately, that stuff does exist, and it can be demoralizing or damaging to those of us who have best interests involved. Right. So anyway, that's really, in a nutshell, that's the kind of the comparison of real identity versus digital identity.
I do got to say something about this though, because when you and I were talking online, it's hard. I mean, even like when I go to Michigan to visit my family and you were back here, you didn't like when we were talking, like texting, because you can't see or hear emotions.
I've mentioned that several times,
right?
And
which you cannot. Texting is I would think is digital.
Yeah.
Is your digital identity.
Right.
Because you could say and do anything on a phone.
Yeah. You can't tell or you don't have any affirmation.
You can't. And then there's a couple of times where you thought I was like either sad or upset or something because you can't see the emotions of or hear.
It got so, excuse me, it got so irritating at one point that I actually told you, I said, honey, call me.
Right.
I was like, I don't want to do this anymore on a text. Just call me. It's easier for me to hear emotions that way. It gives you an extra senses, from your six senses. You get a little extra senses. Is it six, seven, or six senses? Six senses. You have an extra. You have sound in there, so you have some extra insight, and that way you can make a little justification on how the person is feeling. Yeah, 100%. This next, I'm going to go through this really fast. I'm not actually going to go into details, but I did want to share the positive and negative impacts of social media. And I know we've kind of covered that already a whole lot, but social connection and support. Social media allows
isn't this kind of what the whole podcast is about?
Yeah, it pretty much is in a nutshell, social media allows young people to stay connected with friends and family, especially those who live far away. We were just discussing that right at the start of this. It can also provide a sense of belonging and community for those who might feel isolated. Now, you kind of disagreed with me on this, but if you recall, you said, well, You specifically use Facebook for family connection and
That's
friends
it.
that you know, right?
All the time.
And I was saying that some of the younger generation, I shouldn't say these, but some of the younger generation children nowadays will use social media
You did state to look
to
for
find new friends.
around, or
Yeah. So then they might have a long list of like 2,000 friends, 80% of which they don't talk to.
I mean, to be truthful, you and I did that when we were younger. I mean, that's how you and I met.
Yeah, through MySpace, I think our social networks were a lot
Pal Talk.
larger. Yeah, and MySpace and Pal Talk. But I'm saying like our social networks on MySpace were a lot larger because I added anyone and everyone. Whereas when Facebook came around, I was a little bit more specific.
See, I was
then.
no,
What?
not even on MySpace did I add anyone and everyone.
Yeah.
On
yeah.
MySpace,
See,
and actually, you could pull up my old MySpace.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can pull up my old. I think I only have like 185 friends on
See,
MySpace.
I just added anyone and
I
everyone.
only did family
Yeah,
and friends.
Yeah.
Again,
And
so
MySpace
never,
was so dangerous. There was ways to like
Yeah.
fish a lot of information. It was terrible back then.
Can we not get into that part?
No, we won't. That's
'Cause that
story
could be
for
another
day. Yeah, it's a
podcast
lot
there.
there. But anyway, next one on the list: self-expression and identity exploration. Social media platforms can provide a space for young people to express themselves creatively and explore their identities. We already talked about that. Access to information and resources. Social media can be a great way for young people to learn about current events, find educational resources, and connect with causes they care about. Love that, right? I mean, it's great that we can use the internet for information, educational purposes, and help grow our minds in
our
certain
children for the
areas.
last half of this school year, they were online doing schooling.
Right.
They were homeschooled.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
And I
so-
think so many people have found different art forms, whether it's like a guitarist or pianist,
Right.
whatever it might be. And it's something as simple as just watching YouTube videos all day and you're learning
Right,
through these
yeah.
educational experiences. Just so cool. Negative impacts, mental health. That's been a big thing. We keep thinking about this. Like, how is this affecting us? Studies have shown a correlation between heavy social media use and increased anxiety. I was saying that at the start of this. Can be linked to other factors like cyberbullying, sleeping problems, the blue light that's emitted. A lot of people don't think about this, but the blue light that's emitting from the displays of the phones. Thankfully, newer devices are starting to add that yellow light removal. For example, right now, if you're watching the video podcast, you'll see I'm actually wearing blue light blockers. It blocks blue light. And
we have our children both need glasses, but theirs is blue light
blockers,
because
yeah.
of with them. Sorry,
being in
us.
front, well, at school,
Our
at
daughter,
home,
yeah,
anywhere
well,
being in
at
front of
school
devices, we're always
and-
exposed.
yeah.
And TVs, we're always exposed to anything that has a display is blue light. That's why when you're watching our podcast, you'll see our faces glow blue when we're on a white website. That blue glow you're seeing is the ultraviolet splashing onto our faces. So it's been a concern about that. Well, that could be a whole nother health topic on another
Right.
podcast. We'll have to invite a health expert on that one. But addiction and attention issues. That's been another big topic with social media. How it's affecting an addiction, but also attention. Like someone who just can't put the phone down. They just can't put social media down.
Right.
They're always looking for dopamine through that product. And exposure to inappropriate content. We're going to get into that. It's going to be really harsh, but we're going to get into a couple videos that were in front of Congress. And these are documented issues that have been going on through 2024. But I want to share this information for those who have been in some way, shape, or form affected by social media. You're not alone. You know, this stuff is real serious things, and that's why we wanted to touch base on these topics. Woo! Talking a lot here. Should we go for a mid-roll? Take a little breather?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah,
Let's
I
go ahead
think
and run the mid-roll.
Mid, bro.
Let's go ahead and run the mid-roll, and we'll be right back here.
Ever worried about your personal information online? Data breaches happen all the time, and your email address or password could be at risk, but don't panic. There's a free and easy way to check your online security. Introducing HaveIBeenPwned.com. The website that helps you stay on top of your online safety. Again, that's Have I Been Pwned, spelled PWNED.com. Have I Been Pwned checks if your email or password has been compromised in a data breach. It's completely free, secure, and takes just seconds. Don't let hackers win. Take control of your online security. Visit Have I Been Pwned today. Have peace of mind knowing you're protected. Have I Been Pwned, PWNED.com. I remember Mateo telling me a story one day that his email had been compromised and it showed up on a blacklist. The issue with this was that he was not able to send and receive legitimate emails between a reputable partner of ours. It just caused delays and confusion for everyone all around. Also, make sure your passwords are safe and complex enough. No one likes getting their account stolen online. Always use two-factor authentication. Listen, folks, I can go on and on, but safety starts with you. Again, be sure to check out this free online tool today. Have I been pwned? Spelled PWNED.com. That's it for now. Take it away, Mateo and Jen.
Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it, Mike. Thank you for the insightful information. Yes, haveibeenpwned.com. Let me show that real quick here. I'll show it to you guys. Really cool website. Very useful. It's a great way to verify stolen information.
Do you really want to give them a clue on what it is?
Kind of a little example?
Two
Yeah.
Angels, One Destiny?
Yeah, let's do it.
One of my, like, old
So this is one of
O's.
your old emails.
Yeah, this was like when I
Not
was
really
a
used
teen,
anymore. It's
actually.
retired. Yeah. And man, this one has been exploited beyond all measures.
14 breaches it shows that
14
that
breaches.
email.
Yeah. You'd be surprised, guys. Go in there. Go to
I didn't know
haveibeenpwned.com.
anything. Like, I didn't know this.
Go to haveibeenpwned.com. That's PWNED.com.
Type in your email.
Haveibeenpwned.com. Type in your email and see what you get. You'd probably be surprised. You'd be like, what? My email? Does that mean you need to throw the email out? No, it doesn't. But hopefully this helps raise some awareness that, yeah, even your data can be compromised, just like ours.
I don't use this email.
Yeah, this is
ever.
a retired one. And you had some like, just for example here, Telegram, which is an app, messaging app. I remember us testing that for a little while between you and I.
And then, my fitness. I did use apps, so my fitness pal.
Yep, my fitness pal. Here's MySpace.
Yep.
Again, it's an old email.
PyZap, which is photo editing.
Yeah, photo editing app that was on your phone.
And then another messaging.
Another messaging app, all-in-one app. Trillion. Wattpad. Yeah, they're applications we use on a daily basis. Now, we're not saying that these companies are bad. They didn't do any wrong. In most cases, if you read into this, it gives you a description of how the information got stolen. In most cases, the information was just maliciously stolen.
Which somebody hacking into their system.
By intent. Yeah. So, it's and we those companies and brands, many companies, brands and organizations do their best to protect information. But things happen. I don't think our information is all stored into database tables online.
Yeah.
Once those tables get cracked, your information is vulnerable. So it's something to keep in hindsight. I'm not saying to fear the internet or you don't go home and like start deleting every account.
But two-factor authentications on everything
big
is
time.
a big priority.
Yes.
You need
and
it.
so many people
Especially
are skipping
if you have business. If you have a business,
right.
You need to 100% protect
use two-factor.
Yeah.
And so many people are not. So many people are just skipping that. Do you want to enable two-factor authentication?
And they say, no, not right now.
It's too much. I got to open another app.
You might have to do that right then and there.
Generate a code.
Because guess what? When you say not now or later, you won't ever do it.
When you select not now, that means you're enlisting yourself for the next vulnerability exposure.
That's right.
Now, some of these exploits are inside jobs by people that just, again, malicious, intentful people that steal information. So you could at least do yourself the favor, use the two-factor. Your information, most websites encrypt our data. So it's behind encrypted chains, but because chains are getting easier and easier to crack as quantum computing advances, the time it takes to crack a password is shortening. So as that time shortens, the only protection we have right now is two-factor authentication because it's the most modern method of cybersecurity until two-factor is cracked.
No, I worked at a student loan place, dude. Really?
Yeah.
And your password needed to be 16 characters long.
Right.
Like a phrase.
Yep. And then you had to two-factor.
Hard for me. It was after
well.
that. But it was so hard for me to sit here and come up with a phrase. I'm like,
right. Yeah.
that I actually would remember.
Yeah, it's super important, guys.
And,
we're not trying to scare anyone, but it's really important in hindsight. Just do yourself the favor when you have those two-factor options there. Verify.
That's why.
Even at minimum, verify by email.
It will help you from getting your identity stolen, your real identity.
Right. Verify by email or maybe an SMS code. An SMS code is just as vulnerable. Again, two-factor is only the modern-day version of the best security available until that is cracked. And then once that's cracked, we'll be then on the next step. Some companies already have three-factor, where you have to swipe a badge and then put in a password and then two-factor. So it depends on how many layers of security are necessary to keep the data secure. It's nothing anyone's doing anything bad. It's just that this is the responsibility we are taking as cybersecurity analysts to do our best to protect one another from cybersecurity threats. Plain and simple. Sorry. But let's jump into this one's a tough one. Do you want to take the reins on this?
So the TikTok blackout challenge. has now allegedly killed 7 kids.
And this is as of 2022, so this is old news from like 2 years ago. But we live with this forever. No, we live with these issues. We live with these how I want to say it, damages. They're damages to our lives that now we have to deal with for the rest of our lives. It doesn't go away.
Okay, so this happened as of 2022, but I also have a nephew that mentioned to me that he's done the blackout challenge, but he was around his friends.
Yeah. When we went to Reddit, we started researching the blackout challenge.
For anyone who does not know what the blackout challenge is, because as of now, it's hard to find anything on the internet about it.
Well, you can research it online and you can find details about it. But
it's about
disclaimer.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. You should not be doing this.
No, ever, never.
The fact that we were doing this when we were younger was absolutely stupid because this could put you into strokes. It could put you into a cardiac arrest.
So choking yourself until the point of you blacking out.
Yeah.
That's what the blackout challenge is.
Right. And kids, it's nothing new because this has been something that was done before social media existed.
Oh, right.
But
I know.
in that case, though, like we were discussing,
it was with friends.
You were with friends. If something happened, your friend would try to like resuscitate you, shake you back to wake, or at least call 911.
This is not
right. These incidences have been worse because it's dealt with
children
that were unattended,
that are not with friends.
Right. They're on their own, just playing, not doing anything wrong. Because one of the things we said, we knew we were going to get some lashback on this on the podcast. And you and I said, yeah, but we didn't have social media when we were kids. And I was 8 years old swinging around on some monkey bars, and my mother was at home just relaxing. Exactly. I didn't have my mom holding my hand every second everywhere I went.
Exactly.
So we just had a rule that you had to be home when the street lights came on, especially for you.
And that's what I stated. I said, I was out riding my bikes. Where was my parents?
Right. We did perfectly fine.
You do not need, or you should not have to watch your kids 24/7.
Right. I mean,
no, to an instant, you should know where they are.
But our children means everything to us as parents.
That's what I know. But if you're inside of a house,
yeah, right, and your kids are safe at home,
exactly,
in your own home. You're relaxing, maybe watching a movie with your husband or wife. And your kids are playing in the room. I used to play all the time by myself in my room with my Legos, man. I was doing perfectly fine.
Did your mother check on you 24/7? Like,
heck no.
She sitting there on your bed?
No. Once in a while she would, just to play with me or just check in on me, see how I was doing. But then she went on doing cooking dinner or cleaning house or whatever.
Okay, well, for one, my daughter, our daughter, sits in her room, but our children's doors are always open.
Right. You know? And we always walk by, we always say hi, and we're always communicative with each other.
But I'm not there.
And we drag them out of the rooms. I mean, you know.
But I'm not there with them, and they go to school, you know, they have friends, they stay the night at their friend's house.
Right.
You know?
Right. So we can't, basically what we're trying to say is you can't always be there for that kid every moment of your life. I understand some parents are so scared to give their kids some rope.
The reason we're talking about this is because of the backlash that happened, like the comments and stuff about
there was a lot of carelessness on this topic.
Can you read this, because I'll get emotional.
TikTok is facing multiple lawsuits from parents who say their children died of strangulation attempting the blackout challenge. Now, mind you, again, this is from 2 years ago. After the app showed them videos of other people trying it. One of the big things I want to mention to everyone out there watching the podcast, listen, here's the most important takeaway from this. These systems are algorithmically controlled, and it's only getting more and more that way. The reason why the methodology is used this way in these platforms is because it provides relatable content to the viewer. So when you're sitting there and you're watching a video about how to manicure your nails, you're going to get a bunch more videos
about that.
Exactly that topic. So the algorithm is going to shape you in the direction. Just like finding our podcast, you most likely found our podcast through an algorithm that said you were interested in family talk, parenting, stuff like that, because that's what we market and campaign. So I just want people to be I want to be as transparent as I can be, and I'm hoping that I'm not missing any details. And please cut me off if I am, honey.
Oh, no, you're not.
but the most important key takeaway is if you are by accident, you come across something, because the algorithm does throw new things at you to see if there's something there adaptable.
Right.
But there's no one sitting there in an office. I mean, they do have a forensics team for TikTok. All these brands do, but things slip through the cracks. And that's where then other parents say, well, then you need to be more responsible about monitoring your children's activities. Yeah, but we weren't given the parental control tools and features until all these brands started to end up in court cases and in front of Congress, that all of a sudden they wanted to start implementing something they could have implemented a long time ago. Right. Parental control is not a new concept. It's been around forever.
And it's crazy that it seems like they're now really implementing it.
Right.
You know,
we're starting to see it now, and it's helpful that we're starting to see this, because it's necessary.
I think it was Snapchat or something. They have parental controls on Snapchat.
Right. You shouldn't just hand your device to a child and let them register an account. It even tells you in there, when you go through the terms and conditions on these applications, it says that this should be done by adult supervision or someone of age.
Our daughter had a parental control until she turned 13, because then that's when they considered her.
Well, yeah. But she still does.
I mean, we
lost some control, but we still have still analytical data on how long she's spending inside of certain apps.
We actually have her a time limit on her phone. Like, her phone shuts off at a time.
Right.
So.
And we're not trying to be like overly strict parents. No, what this is avoiding this kind of exposure that we're talking about in unfortunate circumstances. Let me go ahead and go back on track here, but regarding the blackout challenge. So one suit filed against the company in June alleges that at least 7 specific children died last year while attempting the challenge. So this would have been 2021 that these incidents were occurring. I think that was lockdown, wasn't it? COVID, right? So now you have to keep in mind that we're now
that time
stuck in our houses.
Right, and at that time, kids were more exposed to the internet than they ever were when it was COVID.
Yeah, because we're all stuck in our houses. There's more social exposure there. We're just at home. We're looking for ways to occupy our time.
Exactly.
Now, granted, there's probably, maybe pick up a new hobby or something, but
or
everybody's
maybe go outside and play it, but at least around your area.
Right. Yeah, but nonetheless, there's no excuse for this stuff. Like I keep saying, one is too many. We'll kind of skip through this. Yeah, I'm going to zoom through some of this. But
the most recent lawsuit was filed by the parents of 8-year-old
Leilani. I apologize if I'm saying the names wrong. Leilani Walton and a 9-year-old Ariana Arroyo. However, it cites several other children that also died after attempting the challenge as evidence that TikTok was aware of the problem. A 10-year-old in Italy, a 12-year-old in Colorado, 14-year-old in Australia, 12-year-old in Oklahoma, and a 10-year-old in Pennsylvania. And the thing is people probably look at this, they're looking at us like we're crazy. Like, y'all are making this stuff up. No, because this actually happened to us. We are one of the victims through these stories. We're not, basically one of our cousins is in this case. So, I do want to be delicate about this. So I know my cousin may listen to this, all due respect. And this is a lot to take in. But nonetheless, I'll jump into the next article here. This was the actual family member of ours who unfortunately passed away too young. 9 years old. And, this is a serious deal. This is serious business. This isn't a joke. This isn't something that we're kidding around about. This is serious stuff that's happening because of social media exposure. This was absolutely unacceptably uncalled for. Our daughter was at a park playing with this little girl. I remember them together. I remember her little smile. I remember these memories. And she's gone.
And that's what social media does.
Right. And she's gone. And I'm not going to turn this too much into. I apologize. Again, this is why we put a disclaimer, discretion on this podcast. It's a lot to take in, but it's stuff we wanted to talk about. Now, where does this go? So I'm going to zoom through this because we're running short on time. But this made it all the way to Congress. That's how impactful this was, that it made it to Congress. Let me go ahead and run this. This is Mark Zuckerberg
apologizing,
making an attempt to apologize to the families that were victims of such trauma.
Mr. Zuckerberg, let me start with you. Did I hear you say in your opening statement that there's no link between mental health and social media use?
Senator, what I said is I think it's important to look at the science. I know people widely talk about this as if that is something that's already been proven. And I think that the bulk of the scientific evidence does not support that.
Well, really, let me just remind you of some of the science from your own company. Instagram studied the effect of your platform on teenagers. Let me just read you some quotes from the Wall Street Journal's report on this. Company researchers found that Instagram is harmful for a sizable percentage of teenagers, most notably teenage girls. Here's a quote from your own study. Quote, "We make body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls." Here's another quote. Teens blamed Instagram, this is your study,
33%.
for increases in the rate of anxiety and depression. This reaction was unprompted and consistent across all groups. That's your study.
Right.
Senator, we try to understand the feedback and how people feel about the services. We can improve.
Wait a minute, your own study says that you make life worse for 1 in 3 teenage girls. You increase anxiety and depression. That's what it says, and you're here testifying to us in public that there's no link. You've been doing this for years. For years, you've been coming in public and testifying under oath that there's absolutely no link. Your product is wonderful. The science is nascent, full speed ahead, while internally, you know full well your product is a disaster for teenagers.
Senator,
and yet you
that's
keep
not true.
right on doing what you're doing. Right?
That's not true. That's not true.
Let me show you some other
I
facts
think you
I
got
know
more.
that you're familiar.
It is
Well,
partially true.
Wait a minute. That's not a question. That's not a question. Those are facts, Mr. Zuckerberg. That's not a question.
Those aren't facts.
Let me show you some more facts. Here's some information from a whistleblower who came before the Senate, testified under oath in public. He worked for you. It's a senior executive. Here's what he showed he found when he studied your products. So, for example, this is girls between the ages of 13 and 15 years old. 37% of them reported that they had been exposed to nudity on the platform unwanted in the last 7 days. Oh, wow. 24% said that they had experienced unwanted sexual advances. They've been propositioned in the last 7 days.
And this stuff happens by accident just because of an algorithm that is running unmonitored, unadulterated. There's no one there maintaining this system that algorithmically provides content besides the filtration, which flags content, right? Like beheadings, shootings, stabbings, violence, nudity. These things get flagged by the algorithm, but there are occasions where things slip through the cracks. And to be honest to you, these algorithms have only become enhanced as of recent because a lot of this technology didn't exist. I'll continue here, but
17% said they had encountered self-harm content pushed at them in the last 7 days. Now, I know you're familiar with these stats because he sent you an email where he lined it all out. I mean, we've got a copy of it right here. My question is, who did you fire for this? Who got fired because of that?
Senator, we study all of this because it's important and we want to improve our services.
Well, you just told me a second ago you studied it, that there was no linkage. Who did you fire?
I said you mischaracterized.
37% of teenage girls between 13 and 15 were exposed to unwanted nudity in a week on Instagram. You knew about it. Who did you fire?
Senator,
And it's
this is why we're
been
building
ongoing.
all
Who did you fire?
tools.
ongoing.
Senator, I don't think that.
This was just an observation of a week. Just imagine years.
Who did you fire?
I'm not going to answer that.
Didn't fire nobody.
You didn't fire anybody, right? You didn't take any significant action.
So the same thing I did. I didn't even hear
You said it
this.
first. Yeah.
It's not appropriate.
Decisions
Do you know who's sitting behind you? You've got families from across the nation whose children are either severely harmed or gone, and you don't think it's appropriate to talk about steps that you took? The fact that you didn't fire a single person? Let me ask you this. Have you compensated any of the victims?
Sorry?
Have you compensated any of the victims?
No.
These girls, have you compensated them?
I don't believe so.
Why not?
And he's looking at the congressman like the congressman is crazy.
Right.
Like, this man is insane for saying these things. Dude, this is our families. These are our families we're talking about here, sir. Like, come on.
Don't you think they deserve
He doesn't even
some
care.
compensation for what your platform has done? Help
Senator,
with counseling services? Help with dealing with the issues that your services cause?
Our job is to make sure that we build tools to help keep people safe.
Are you going to
That's
compensate
not causing. That's not.
All he
they're not-
cares about is building tools. He's not concerned about emotion. He's concerned about being a technical little prick.
Job, and what we take seriously is making sure that we build industry-leading tools to find harmful
To
content,
make money.
take it off the services,
To make money.
and to build tools that empower parents.
So you
and
didn't
help
take
work
any
with-
action. You didn't
That's
take
not
any
true,
action.
Senator.
You didn't fire anybody. You haven't
not true.
compensated a
That's
single
not-
victim.
that's
Let
not
me
what I
ask you
said.
this. Let me ask you this. There's families of victims here today. Have you apologized to the victims? Would you like to do so now?
Well-
they're here. You're on national television. Would you like now to apologize to the victims who have been harmed by your product? Show them the pictures. Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
I'm sorry for speaking to you all. No one should have to go through the things that your families have suffered. And this is why we invested so much and are going to continue doing industry-leading efforts to make sure that no one has to go through the types of things that your families have had to suffer.
You know,
I don't think they got a good enough
Mr. Zuckerberg,
an apology.
Why should your company not be sued for this? Why is it that you can claim, you hide behind a liability shield, you can't be held accountable? Shouldn't you be held accountable personally? Will you take personal responsibility?
Senator, I think I've already answered this. I mean, these
Well,
are
try
serious
this again.
issues.
Will you take personal responsibility?
Senator, I view my job and the job of our company as building the best tools that we can
Always
to keep our
tools.
community safe.
Well, you're failing at
and
that.
Well, Senator,
A
we're doing an
lawyer script.
industry-leading effort. We build AI tools
nonsense.
that
An attorney
Your
script.
product is killing people. Will you personally commit to compensating the victims? You're a billionaire. Will you commit to compensating the victims? Will you set up a
I'm sorry,
compensation
but-
fund
Senator,
with your
I
money?
think these are
With your money.
complicated- Senator, these are complicated
Yes, no,
issues.
that's not a complicated question, though. That's a
Senator,
yes or no.
this is-
Will you set up a victims' compensation fund with your money, the money you made on these families sitting behind you? Yes or
Right.
no?
Senator, I don't think that's.
He doesn't wanna
my
say
job
it.
is to
Sounds
make
like a
sure
no.
we
Running
build
about.
tools. My
Sounds
job
like a
is to
no.
make
Running,
sure-
running
Your
circles
job
around
is to be
the question.
responsible for what your company has done. You've made billions of dollars on the people sitting behind them. Are you here? You've done nothing to help them. You've done nothing to compensate them. You've done nothing to put it right. You could do so here today, and you should. You should, Mr. Zuckerberg. Before my time expires, Mr. Chu, let me just ask you.
I'm gonna skip the other video because we're running short on time. But that speaks in large numbers to the unfortunate circumstances we're dealing with when it comes to social media. And again, it's not all bad, right? But when something gets that severe, that concerning, we need to address that. There's no reason why we should have echo chambers that are becoming dangerous pots for our loved ones or ourselves. So I'm going to go over some quick information here because I don't want anything to come off as conspiracy theory. Cambridge Analytica, they were a company and an organization that worked in the Conservatory Party for the British, royal family and military. They had offices inside of New York City, London, and Washington. They're a big organization that was pushing out a lot of advertising and campaigning for political parties. Through all of this, what we learned is that psychometrics was a measurement. Now, this company went out of business. They're no longer around because of this, but they were using psychometric data. They were using our information that was observed through, how many, do you remember how many Facebook accounts? Like 80 million or something like that?
8.2, I think, million.
It was
Or no, it was
like 80
82.
million?
It was 82 million.
82 million
Yeah.
accounts that they had collected data from. Didn't ask for permission because in the clause somewhere in there it says that they might use your info in other ways. So we accept these terms and
Right.
don't even realize it as consumers. And now all this information is getting passed over to a third party that was just using it for political purposes. That allows psychometrics. For anyone who does not know what psychometrics is, it refers to the field in psychology devoted to the testing, measurement, and assessment of related activities. Through some of this is where we learn more about A/B testing. A/B testing is a way of testing a platform to see which version of that platform
Is
works
better.
best. Yeah. I gave you the example, like let's say you go to
Yeah.
sixflags.com
And then I go to sixflags.com and they're different.
and the website looks different on your phone and looks
Yeah.
different on my phone. And you're like, wait a minute, why do our phones look different?
and then I'll close out of it because I like yours, and then I'll try to reopen it to see if I get
right.
yours.
Yeah, try to get it. Yeah, exactly. You're trying to like, why is this different? Like something's going on. Sometimes what we're seeing is an A/B testing platform occurring live in front of us. We don't understand it. it. But A/B testing allows developers to build websites or applications based on which version of that website or which version of the app works best.
See, I didn't know that either.
Right.
So all this I learned too.
Content is handed to us. I'm trying to teach people the machine learning methods and artificial intelligence that's behind the process of what content you're receiving. These algorithms are kicking. What's going to convert that content better? This picture is from SEObility.net. I just wanted to give some credit where credit is due, but nonetheless, this shows that comparison of what A/B testing looks like when they're comparing or testing platforms. And sometimes you're unaware. As the single viewer in your bedroom, you don't realize which version you're getting, but these conversions do occur because it's part of testing. There's a lot of conspiracy when it comes to QAnon. I'm not going to get into this. Right. Seeing is believing, but we'll link this article. Yeah. Really cool read, a lot of useful information about this. But what we're trying to avoid in the long run here is apophenia. We're trying to avoid apophenia. It's the tendency to perceive a connection or meaningful pattern between unrelated or random things. The internet and machine learning and AI and it providing all of this algorithm that it's feeding us can cause apophenia. And apophenia is the human tendency to see connections and patterns that are not really there. I had a friend that said, he was seeing...
Which is, for one, like, conspiracies.
Yeah,
like
he was seeing 323 everywhere. And if you study and observe how QAnon works and how numbers and patterns work, you would realize it shouldn't come off too surprising to see those specific patterns. There's nothing happening. You're not crazy. What you're experiencing is apophenia. It's just a natural observation. It's just like asking, why do I have dreams?
No, so does that mean every time I look at the clock, it's always 11:11? Isn't that kind of weird?
Yeah, right. People that, kind of believe in that conspiracy of...
But it's like it's every time. Like sometimes I miss it, but it seems like 3-4 times in a row when I look at it,
that is apophenia. Yeah. So, that's...
So apparently avoid it.
I mean, I'm not saying to avoid anything. What I'm saying is to be aware of these things. These things exist in the real world. And now that our digital identity leaks into our real identity in certain ways and shapes and forms to the point where we even do our Social Security administration online sometimes nowadays.
Oh, I know.
You got to be careful. And your real identity and I think the moral of the story was what was the moral of the story of this? We're going to get to that here in a moment.
But the moral of the story was that you want your real identity to also fall over into your digital identity.
Yeah. Your real identity should mimic your digital identity, but you shouldn't go to the point of putting too much information on the internet because you as a person are very valuable.
Right. And you have to protect yourself.
You mean everything to us. So do yourself the favor, be careful, but at the same time, don't use it for malicious purposes. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do. I mean, if you want to go to jail for using malicious, that's up to you. I mean, I personally rather just use it to learn how many cups of sugar I need in my pancakes.
Right.
But I digress. Any last words from the lady?
Nope, that's about it.
We appreciate you guys for tuning in today. And I know this one was a big one. This is a lot to cover, but we wanted to...
sorry for crying there a bit. It gets emotional.
It's a lot, especially when it's so close to home for us.
That's all we have time for.
It's all the time we got for this episode. Take care, everybody. Until next time, we'll see you later. The moral of the story: your real identity should match your digital identity at heart.
Be the beautiful, authentic you.
Always and forever. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
See you later.
Thanks for tuning into M&J's World Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's show. You can find our podcast on both iTunes and Spotify. If you'd like to see our video podcasts, visit M&J's World on YouTube Podcasts today. New episode out every Friday. If you have questions, comments, or ideas for the show, please email us at mnjpodcasts@gmail.com. Again, that's mnjpodcasts@gmail.com. Until next time, have a great day.